Yes.
My replacement didn't go well.
Okay, so we do have 2 o'clock, so we will call the work session meeting of the Norfolk Village Council to order. And roll call will show that trustee Rubel is absent, but is planning on attending via Zoom. And all our other trustees are in attendance via person. Village manager and clerk are here as well. And I see our new treasurer back there also. Second agenda item is approval of the agenda or any amendments or additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any? Hearing none. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is set. That brings us to item 3, which is our first public comment. You will have 5 minutes to address the council. You can raise your hand, I'll recognize you, state your name and residency. Or in Zoom, if you want to unmute, I can recognize you that way as well. Public comments open.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just here and I can't see my picture yet. My name is Ruth Butler Arns. I live on North Shore Drive. And I wanted to applaud the continued attention you're paying to our resources, our people, our land. So good work on that part. I also want to recall a couple years ago when we went through the process or witnessed the process of what to do with the 7th Street property and the endless hours that the Planning Commission spent on this to come up with the proposal that you're dealing with now, which is selling a portion or developing a portion of it and keeping wetlands. I still support that. I still support attainable, affordable housing on that spot, but I also greatly support that the wetlands be preserved the way they were intended back when this proposal was made. And I really hope you keep that in mind as you move forward, what to do with that property, which I hope is affordable housing and even give some benefits to workers in Northport. But so thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
I wanted to mention that there's correspondence that I forwarded
Yep.
to council today. One was just an hour ago, and both of those emails are included in Dropbox.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Joanne Swanson. I'm spoken to you before many times on this issue. My view hasn't changed. I still do not see the wisdom in shaving this parcel off from the remainder of the woodland property. But beyond that, I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the proposal before you today. As I understand it, the developer was asked to give a concept proposal for that one parcel that was reserved by the village council a year and a half ago for potential development. And this proposal looks like it goes well beyond that. It intrudes into the area that this council indicated would be protected and left in its natural state. It contemplates 8 buildings. Well, I'm sorry, the phase 1 contemplates 2 buildings, a number of parking spots, things that are just inconsistent in my view with the conservation preservation designation of that whole area that we have been talking about, as Ruth indicated, for a couple of years. But beyond that, this is phase 1. This proposal looks like it contemplates 2 other, a couple of other phases that would allow for 8 buildings, 46 units, and 105 parking spaces. And I just think that going down that road is not a good choice for this property. So thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Anyone else for public comment? If there are no other takers for public comment, we'll move on to our liaison reports. These were added to the work session meeting consistent with our rules of procedure. So first up, we have waterfront and marina. We did, just have these reports 2 weeks ago, so there may not be much to update, but
Well, there is a little bit to update. Bill is here, so maybe he'd like to go forward with it. If not, I can.
How is my reception? Am I coming in okay?
yes,
Okay, all right. So, yeah, you have the report from a couple of weeks ago, from me. Nothing much has changed from that time. I just would, want to alert you that we had a little mishap on the fuel dock. My gosh, not yesterday, day before, Tuesday. A boat arrived, and asked for gas. I heard the word gas 3 times, and it turns out they wanted diesel. So I was, I added 3 gallons of gas to their small tank. We were able to get this boat. He didn't start the engine. We got him into a slip, and we're taking care of it at that point. The boat was towed over to the boat yard, which is where it was going anyway today. And they're gonna pump out that fuel today, and we're on the hook for that. So it was a very good lesson. I stress, I've never had this happen, and I stress to my staff and myself, I just always ask another time, is this gas or diesel? And like I said, I heard gas 3 times. My other dockhand who was there heard gas. That's a very unfortunate circumstance.
So just a question, Bill, at some point, did the owner say, oh no, you're putting in gas, or what happened? How was it discovered?
How was it discovered? That's a very good question. When he went in to pay, and the dockhand who was at the register said, okay, well, that's 3 gallons of gas. And he said, no, diesel. So, so that's how we discovered it. It's just very, very unfortunate, and I apologize.
Thank you.
So good.
that's it. Okay.
That's it for me, unless anybody has any questions about how things are going at the marina. I'm happy to answer.
Anyone? No? All right. Appreciate the update, Bill.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, infrastructure, we have an update too, because I met with Jared and Chris Holton to go over a bunch of the infrastructure projects that we had been working on before Jared was starting. And kind of reviewed, I mean, it was not 15 minutes, Hugh. But they are looking to, one of the projects we had been looking at is the potential water leak that is likely a water leak that's in front of Faro on the sidewalk. If you notice, that tree is much bigger than the rest, even though it's the same age. And they're looking to maybe do that after uncaged and investigate and see about repairing that, and they're doing as much as they can in-house, but they do have to coordinate, I believe, with Cal for some parts of it. And then there's the water main and hydrant project between 5th and 6th on Warren that they are looking to get numbers for. That won't be this year, but getting that together so that it can be brought to council to review. And then we hopefully sometime this month we'll find out if the grant for Rose Street is approved. And if that is approved, then we'll need to, see what matching funds we need to do and get the prices updated and see if that's possible to move forward. Technically, there is enough cash on hand right now to do it, but then there would be very little cash on hand left for any other issues that could arise, which are kind of almost guaranteed to happen as you go. So looking at that, probably if we find out about the grant this month, next month, maybe.
And we talked about at the work session in October, doing an update on these projects that have been underway. The water leak, the Fifth Street.
Yeah,
water
but these are
leak.
things that they had been working on. It's just they haven't happened yet. And so bringing them for a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that can tie in, I think, to discussion just about some other priorities and how we can start to address those, whether it's not just Not just this fiscal year, but also moving ahead.
Yeah.
Right, anything for Laura? Questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to planning commission.
Yeah, planning commission, we are still continuing to work on the master plan and are currently kind of in the works of working on writing the drafts. We've reviewed most of it. And kind of getting the writing in place, working and seeing if we can pull together an executive summary to be at the beginning, to make it easier to understand, and kind of moving forward on that. And continuing to make progress so that we can have a draft that people can start looking at. And there are drafts there. It's just some of our revisions have not. We've discussed, decided what we want to look at changing, but don't have the finished copy yet. And then we worked on finishing through the properties rubric. It's on the agenda today, and one of the main reasons for that is that we have it basically completed thanks to Jared's hard work on it as well. And right now we decided that my understanding is direction from council was not to rank them, but to just outline them and put all of the facts in, and let council decide if there are further steps in ranking, or if there's ones we want to prioritize, or how we want to do that. So what we determined is there is some properties that I'm sure you've looked at it that just are not suitable for development, but they're still there, so that if you want to see, these are the properties we own, they're all there. And kind of going through that, seeing, you know, where we go, because it's the discussion. I don't know if I need to do more right now, but
Yeah.
okay, and what else am I forgetting?
The first 4 discussion items are all from the planning commission.
Yeah, so anyway, I think that's the main, and the sign regulation, yes, we did discuss the sign regulation and the zoning issues with that, but again, it's also on the agenda, so I don't feel like I need to, and a big chunk of our time was spent on the rubric too.
We were just working on, Jane and I were just working on the agenda this week, talking about it for next week, because the zoning issues, as we've gotten into that, we see multiple issues that we need to address. And so that's gonna be the bulk of the discussion next week, the planning commission. With the R2S, the shoreline district, D1 multi-use overlay, looking at the minimum lot area, multiple issues that we're looking at.
As well as definitions.
Yeah.
Like there's definitions that have some issues that some are not consistently used throughout, and we tried to clean it up when we did the update, and there were a lot, but there's of course kind of always more. And once you really are looking at it, you're like, oh, and now we notice this because we're thinking about this. It makes us realize that this part needs to shift, so.
Like buying a new chair for your living room, suddenly everything else needs to change.
And that really kind of is part of it, right? As well as getting the zoning approved, because it had been going on for so long without changing, was getting that at least updated. And then the intent always was to go back and some of these other things that we had discovered, but we didn't want to change it at that point, because that would be then doing a whole nother public, you know, whole process all over again. So. Yeah.
All right, anything for Laura on planning commission? All right, NLTUA, no update since the last update 2 weeks ago. That's good with everybody. Okay, that brings us to our discussion items. Item 5A, kick it off, is the village owned properties rubric that was just mentioned in the planning commission report. Laura, do you want to say anything about it before we just start discussing it, or?
And did you want to, or do you want me to, or? Okay, I mean, like I was saying, the main thing we had decided not to rank them. How we decided to separate them is by zone, so that you can look and see, like, that's what they are currently zoned, these, where they're located, these different properties. Other than that, they're in numerical parcel order. I don't know. So some of the things that we did not delve into and we decided not to was, we really have not done title deed searches on all of the properties, and we have not dug into the history or cultural significance of any of the specific lots. And while we think that's valuable, we felt like that's a lot of time, and we don't know if all of the properties need to be looked at that closely. And so we thought, rather than do that for every single parcel, maybe bring it back to council and see if there are ones that people want focused on. And if you want the planning commission to review and dig into those further to be sure there aren't things that we're missing that we would, if we knew them, we wouldn't want to develop them or have them developed. We could do that. I don't know if people wanna go through, I mean, there's quite a few that I think, in my opinion, and a lot of the council commissioners feel that could be sites to also review. And I know that there's the two that are on the agenda that we have looked at. I definitely think there are some on the rubric that we do own that we might want to consider in conjunction with that might be better suited. We just haven't looked at them yet. I'm not sure how we want to talk about going forward, other than like if everybody's like, oh yeah, you guys rank them or something, that would be something if you're sending it back to planning and what the directive is. But if we're not, I mean, are we gonna look through them and talk about them, or what is the plan going forward?
I mean, in my opinion, there's probably only 5 or 6, maybe, out of all of them that were ranked that would be suitable.
I have a question. Why did you include estimated market value?
The estimated market value, so that was on the rubric really so that we had an understanding, and not all of them are filled in. And again, that's because we weren't sure, you know, how do we want to consider that value? The market value if developed, the market value now that it's vacant, you know, like those questions. But the reason is because if you're evaluating these for development, or if you're looking at them as a means to raise funds so that you can do something somewhere else, that was kind of just the thought, is that when we are looking at it, like, for example, when we looked at 7th Street, we wanted to know what the value of those properties was, both for our knowledge, if it's being developed, how much is that worth? Is there a property that we own that maybe it is not being utilized that we want to consider so that we can do something somewhere else? Or just in general, knowing what is the
Okay,
value of the
okay, I
property
get
that
it.
we're looking to develop, because if you're gonna do it with attainable housing, is it worth a ton of money? And that's not a great spot to try and cram attainable housing, sort of. That was kind of the thought process, all
Okay.
those reasons.
Last, can I continue with,
Sure,
2 more questions?
you may.
Last, time we met, I think you, or maybe it was afterwards, I don't know if it was public or not, you said to me that you thought that one had emerged that we hadn't strongly considered as possibly the best piece of property, and what was that?
Well,
for
for
you?
me, I really think that the parking lot on Wakazoo Street is something that we consider, should consider, because a lot of the things that Buster Dame had, like the utilities are right there, it's right in town, it's central. I think that that could be considered. I think just because it's a parking lot doesn't mean it has to stay a parking lot, just like any of the other lots. And that there could be other solutions, even if it is apartments and the lower level is still parking. I think that there's options for that, but I do think there's others. I would be interested to hear which 5 you're looking at too, and considering, so that it's not just my.
No, I mean, just off, I mean, obviously, there's ones that would not, you know, the DPW building. Both sites. Well, yeah, the
Mill
mill.
Pond is off, like that's one that's in the not ones that we necessarily would want to consider, yeah, just like the golf course.
Don't
So-
share your vision on that parking lot, I think. We're gonna need that for businesses, and I think that's
Yeah, and
part of the reason we changed our zoning ordinance for businesses that you benefited from was because that exists, and if we take it away, we're gonna have to take another look at businesses providing their own parking, so I think that's totally off the table. Unless you're gonna build above it and keep it open for parking underneath it, which I think would be cost prohibitive for affordable.
I think that
attainment.
if we're, I'll let you go, Ken.
No, I'm stating my opinion. I think that's kind of crazy. The other thing is, I think there's a lot of hand wringing out there, that is going on because of the miscommunication between Homestretch and the village in terms of what we wanted, to see possibly sketched out down there, as opposed to what this council had decided very firmly years ago, after 2 years of, extended, whatever you call it, process, that we were not going to develop the wooded portion of 7th Street, no matter what. And when that homestretch plan got out into the public, a lot of people freaked the heck out, and I don't blame them. But I think we need to make it clear to everyone that that is not on the table. That if we're gonna develop down at Seventh Street, it is going to be the hard scrabble, already cleared, probably filled. I would imagine that dirt is not original. Somebody filled that a long time ago and flattened it. So that is what we're talking about, possibly a couple of units there. We are not gonna develop the 7 acres of wetland on Seventh Street. Everybody out there in Zoom land, please listen. That's not happening, okay? I mean, over my dead body,
Yeah.
literally. So,
No, I would agree with you. That's what I thought.
we decided
that-
this years ago. We are not gonna open up that Pandora's box again.
But the hard stuff, the hard.
Yeah, I think
there
that's-
Is a primo. spot.
Yes, I think that's what we should be looking at. That should be number
I
one.
have one last question. And I asked, I think I know the answer to this, but I asked it for the public. So none of these properties is Buster Dane because Buster Dane
We
is
don't
not
own it.
owned by us.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
And the township has not done a similar rubric?
I think they're working on it, but I don't think that theirs is completed. I
So,
mean, the last I knew from Hugh Scott, they
In-
were working on it. so.
in order for us to consider Buster Dane, we would have to do the land swap between Buster Dane and Seventh Street,
Right.
which the groundwork was done for that and money was spent on surveys and appraisals, and it was in the works until it wasn't. And now it's my understanding that much of that work that was done is now out of date. And at this point, we'd have to start over with all of that because the township failed to act. And there's nothing we could have done about it. We can't do anything until they do. They didn't do anything at all. And still haven't. And so I think that's kind of probably not gonna happen either. I think we gotta go it alone and look at Seventh Street, because I don't think Buster Dane's gonna happen because the township's in action.
I agree with that statement. You asked about the 5 properties, the Melfield Road lot. Although wooded and probably wet, you could maybe get a couple units in there when we talked about small infill. The 7th Street property, the 2 West Street properties, the one that is on the agenda tonight, but also the West Street property that's at the end of Nagana. It's big. I just, again, as just a discussion item, it's heavily wooded. I'm not sure what the wetland delineation would show or anything like that. And then the parking lot. Those were the 5 that I thought would be open for discussion. I think everything else pretty much serves a grand purpose, and I would put a question mark by the village parking lot as well. It's an open space that could be used, but it would be like my last choice because it does serve the purpose of getting street parking into a condensed area. It used to be a house. It was, taken off the site. It was made a parking lot, donated to the village to help with the parking situation. And as we continue to grow our, economic development here in town and more people come to Northport, parking is already a premium. I see this lot here is often filled on evenings and weekends, along with every street corridor.
So that parking lot is used to its maximum capacity all summer long.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I can't believe that it's even up for discussion.
And it's the main stage for Page.
Well,
One of the 2 main stages.
that could be remedied, but still.
but yeah, those are, yes, those were the 5 I thought, and like I said, the parking lot was a questionable one anyways, but I think, Melca with there's really not much going on there. We would need to investigate it a little bit. I think, 7th Street is prime. Before we get to the 7th Street property, the original plan that did come out, when we had a discussion, and John can talk about it when we get there, but when they do their design work, they go for as much as possible and then scale it back. That's why that initial plan came out, but Jared and I, we spoke about using that hard scrap. That's why the second phase came in, and he is gonna have another, hopefully, design for us here that he can talk about when we get to that later. But those are the like kind of my properties that I thought.
Yeah. If I could, one thing, just looking at the aerial views, and I don't know how practical this is or if it would work. This is not my area of expertise, but there are a lot of properties like that you could, if you were to divide them a little bit, slice them up, there's some, like right there. Like, there's room, definitely room behind the old DPW or current
That,
DPW.
that lot is,
And, yeah, I mean, and then on the other side, I think it's Ransom and Third. We've got something there and, there's a lot of little spots all over town, but I don't know if that works for a developer because of the economies of scale. So I'm just saying, it's interesting to me if you could, slice off little corners here and there, but I don't know if that's, like I said, I see Larry wincing, so. Yeah, so it's probably a dumb idea, but I was throwing it out there.
Oh, for sure. Susan? Oh,
so, can I just clarify a couple things?
Yeah.
So, some of the thought on, like, why is the village hall and this lot included? It's not there because we're thinking, like, the thought wasn't, first of all, we were trying to just evaluate the properties. So not necessarily saying this is for housing, but saying what is there and what isn't. As well as though we were trying to say, okay, if we're looking outside the box and we're trying to just evaluate everything, then let's evaluate everything, not just things that are clearly vacant, blank, and ready to go. This property, my thought, and I think other people's, if it was, which again, it's not number one in anybody, I don't think in anybody's book, but it was that the village hall has been talked about expanding or redoing for a long time. If that were happening, could it happen here where that is done, but upper levels, it has additional levels that are apartments, something like that. So, because when we were at the housing summit, I mean, there is one of the examples of the housing is, integrated where there's businesses on the lower level and other things upper. That's to me why I think that the parking lot, if we're gonna look at parks and wetlands, I mean, I feel like we could look at that too. And yes, it might be cost prohibitive, but that isn't what we were looking at this time at planning. Like, we were just trying to evaluate and see what are options. Another lot that to me, I think is something that again has something there, but the children's center, that lot has 116
Yeah.
frontage of space that.
Exactly what I was just looking at, you could cut off.
Yeah, and
Cut that in
that's
half.
why that was there, not
Yeah.
because we want to get rid of the children's center, but because there's portion of that lot that potentially could be used, and it's it's touching the West Street property. And then the same thing, there is this little parcel, which again seems and this is what I don't know, because this is something that to me, we were just looking at what is there, but there is this 50 by 50 lot on the corner that's just down from DPW. And like, is there something that could be done there? Because that is space that's just, that's just there. Then there is the sewage treatment plant, which again, it has wetlands, yes. But there is the section that's facing Johnson, that's right by the trail, that's, how wide is it there? It's,
That real narrow.
yeah, that's like
It's like
60 or something, or
yeah.
50 or 60. And
Right.
again, there might be like that we could do a strip there. I'm not sure, but again, there aren't neighbors. It's not right on the water, and it was, it's land that's there that we own. So,
There's also like 3 acres. I feel like the driving range is sort of off limits, but there is a portion, it's a large area, and there's about a 3 acre portion.
Yeah.
That's not wet
In
on
the
the
Cedar
southeast
Street.
corner.
yes.
So.
And that's why we left that one, right? Like, not because we're like, oh, let's take away the driving range, but because there's other portions. And so that's kind of how we were trying to approach it. But that's why, like, I didn't feel at all that our charge was to pick properties that for sure these, again, not ranking, like just showing these are ones that are there. And the stuff that we eliminated is stuff that just like really doesn't make sense because of what's there. Like, it's a pond, it's the golf course, it's a road, so, and those we sectioned off, but the overviews are still there, but that's just so that you could see all the overviews, right? Same thing, like the creek, we're not gonna develop the creek. So that was kind of the thought and seeking, is there anything else that you want planning to do, or is it something that council is gonna?
2 questions, one from before and one new. This is a little off topic, but has anybody talked to Tim Allen
What?
oh, about
Because
this.
of the lot.
about his lot?
Oh, yeah, everybody's talked to him about it a million times, he's not
He's not
interested
interested
in letting it go for any reason.
and you know that from talking to him, or,
Talking to his representatives, yes,
okay, thank you.
several people have.
Thank you. Second question is, have the developers we're speaking with about West and Seventh looked at this rubric to see if anything looks attractive to them. So they have not, it has not been shared with them.
I am not aware that it has, but again, we hadn't even brought it back to council, so I think
Okay,
that would have been kind of presumptuous.
yeah, okay.
But they can share it with outside
look at it
developers,
now.
but I mean, they could now, I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we're trying to decide, right? Like, I think, it's like, where are we going from here, are there more? Cause to me, another question that I have, which isn't necessarily rubric driven, but like, how many projects are developers willing to look at in Northport? If there are 4 that, like, let's just say there is, like, everybody wants to do 7th Street and West Street, and there are 2 others that they look at, and like, are they willing to do that many projects at once or not? Because to me, if they're not, then we do need to somehow prioritize which ones should go first. But if they are, can they look at more, and then we can look, and then we go, okay, let's try and do all these, let's try and do 3 of these, let's try, I don't know. But that's a question I have, like, cause I don't know the answer.
Mhm.
I just had a comment, are we sure we wanna dismiss the driving range out of hand, because I don't know how much it gets used, I don't wanna, I've been the one that says Buster Dam doesn't get used, I don't know the revenues on the driving range or the use, I don't know. But it's a nice flat spot surrounded by a trail, it's awfully nice up there, so.
And that's what I think about the septic, and that's why we left it, right? Like, because I don't know, and I
I know,
don't
we're
think
just-
the planning.
I just heard
commission
like,
should
of
look
course,
at
we're not gonna discuss that, you're not gonna.
The golf course.
The driving range, of course, the driving range is is off limits, and I'm like, well, is it? I mean,
I'm not sure it is, just because
I don't
I
know.
feel like
I don't have
there's,
the data.
and
I
I
don't
know
know.
it's, and I don't know that it's not that it's off limits, but there are other that parcel's pretty big. The driving range isn't all of it, so
Yeah.
I think that,
no, part of it's.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, so.
to me, you don't necessarily have to get rid of it to be able to do something on that lot.
Yeah, the woods up next to it are worth preserving that's a lot of trees you'd be taking out, it's really nice in there. I mean, it's a beautiful spot,
And-
so,
and-
but I know we have to give up something, so.
And there was also conversation a couple of years ago and about putting some kind of special garden back there. Remember, Chris, when we?
Oh, yeah, that hasn't really gone anywhere.
No,
The Arboretum.
there was gonna be, like, they're gonna do a wedding venue almost, like a
Yeah,
structure and
a whole
a,
That's the
structure
art,
and
I think was
garden.
involved.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there's no
that,
money for that.
it didn't go anywhere.
But I think with that same thinking in some of that similar space, like to the, what would that be, to the left, to the south of the driving range?
To the southwest there.
Southwest.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know,
I
I
mean, we
just,
could, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it
think our
gets used every day
our
during the
DPW
season.
yeah.
And, I think the revenue that it generates doesn't necessarily equate to the actual usage.
Well, it helps generate revenue for it's
And it's,
a builder for the golf course.
yeah, and we
builds
just started,
revenue.
we're working with like the Northport Public School on starting a golf team and stuff like that. So if
Yeah,
you're gonna have people practicing, you don't really send them out on the golf course for practice. I explained that to one person. It's one of the few sports where you don't practice where you play. There's a different correlation there where, soccer field, everybody practices on the soccer field. There's a slight difference there to have a kid just go out and like hit 100 balls into a green, take a bunch of divots out of the fairway
Yeah.
while play is actually going on.
yeah, no,
And we're trying to service the course's needs. But and I think the other thing too, before we get like, we've got all these properties, is that focusing on a couple, but we also have to, and what we're gonna hear later in this discussion is that there's also a demand aspect to it. Like when Homestretch talks, they do a survey that finds out how many units will actually be filled if they were to build them, because they're not gonna build units that they can't get somebody into. And so if we build 100 units, that doesn't mean that all 100 would be filled. There's,
we have space for 100 units.
I'm just throwing up, so if we said 50, there may not be a demand to fill 50 units in Northport. And that's where they're gonna bring data to us, that's gonna help, I think, move our decisions forward, based on what they have experienced in the past. Like it sounded like, just the Vineyard Vines, on Herman Road did not fill right away, right? There was a little time that it took to get people into those units, and that was like 8 or 12 units, correct? I'm gonna 8, so it's, again, that's, there's no sense in overbuilding attainable housing if there's not people to put in them, so. I think, I think now that we've got this, and there are certainly properties that do not fit the bill. And eliminating those from the rubric, I think, would be a good next step. and then leaving on ones like. You said the sewer property, that Johnson Road access, is there potential there? And maybe now they fit into tiers, like what, this is a tier 1 property. Has all the amenities, fairly
Yeah.
clear, then maybe a tier 2 property that would be like, this isn't something we're probably gonna do right now. But we've got it there so that when somebody comes and is looking for property down the line. These are what we have available.
And so who's doing the tiering?
Well, I think that, the council
The usual suspects.
could do that, or, we could, I don't know, like an ad hoc committee, but I think, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, I don't wanna just put this on staff, but clearly, I think there are,
You guys know the most.
There are a couple properties that seem to be. On the border, like they could maybe go either way. So maybe it'd be best to have a draft. And I like the tier idea, I think that makes sense. Maybe have a draft with tiers and then bring it back to council.
Yeah.
To have like a seal of approval.
okay.
Coming from
Do it.
staff or coming from planning?
Either or, I'm not sure, I haven't really,
We're working
thought
together.
about it fully.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't mind doing the work, but, it just kind of depends on how much input you want on it.
I think that, planning is happy to look at it, but because they're not gonna be the decision makers at any point, I think some of planning commissioners feel like they're not the ones who are supposed to be making those decisions. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you agree or, okay. So I just feel like it might be better suited if it is the staff, as well as you guys really, DPW in particular definitely knows the lots better than anybody on planning. And I'm not saying that means DPW should decide, I'm just saying like staff opinions and thoughts on the ones that are remaining to create those tiers, maybe it makes sense.
Okay, well, what, we can do that, I can quickly put together a tier. Just break this down into tiers, bring it back for
Yeah.
discussion. And, we're already doing it now, so we're probably saving a lot of that discussion. Next time it'll be a quicker discussion, just kind of give it a final review.
Well, and if you do that, people can then look at the ones that you guys, staff feels is the best choices. And people can look at those more closely, because right now there is still a lot to look at, right, when you're looking at this. And without full explanation, it's hard to know, what are you, like the children's center one, like that is just as a blank without any context. You don't necessarily know that that's what we were thinking. So I think if there's just a few, like the ones that you have in the top tier, we could focus on those and look at them more closely before discussion.
Susan,
Finally, I want to compliment the planning commission and the staff. This is an incredibly valuable resource. Thank you for
I
all
think
that
it's
help.
helpful. I think that it
It's a
does
lot of
allow us to.
You did a great job.
I feel like it also shows that we really are looking at all of them, as well as developers. If we create these tiers, we can then show them the ones and they can maybe look and see which ones seem like the best to them, which are worth the investment, are gonna be the better investment or better choice. Financially too, because obviously planning was not, we know like, oh, this one would probably be more expensive to develop, this one would be less, but that's just general terms, not people who really know the numbers.
All right, so it sounds like we've got some directive for our staff to take the rubric, eliminate properties that don't make sense, and then tier the ones that would remain. Into like maybe yay,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm thinking 3 tiers.
Yeah.
That's my initial take. Cause I hear general consensus on the top tier, I think.
Edwin, anything to say on the subject?
No, not at all.
Okay, just wanted to check in, because everybody else been chiming in here,
Yeah,
wanna make sure you
yeah.
got your fair
I
shot.
think a lot of the meetings, like just boilerplate materials, I think, the planning commission is doing a fantastic job and, I'm looking forward to when they sort of narrow down on their decision, because there is a lot of considerations to make, so that's it.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion on the rubric, we'll move on to 5B, which is the 7th Street property future use. And We do have John Stimson from Homestretch is here with us today. And in the packet, there are, two concepts. One is the previous aforementioned one that incorporates the entire we'll call it 4 parcel usage. And the second one is a scaled down version that was provided to us. That is a phase 1, which has the 2 buildings there. And then I did also mention he can, talk about it too, but he said that he was gonna discuss with Mansfield a third design that would be more of a cottage court design. Is that correct? That you said in the email there?
Yep.
Yeah, so, Derek,
I've been looking into this a little deeper because I wish I included it in my original memo. There's such a long history and there's been so many minutes and discussion and so much work done on this property through the years. It's hard for me coming in new to get a full grasp on that. But I wanted to make sure I was looking at the last time there was action related to the property, and it was from March of 24. And I think this is what's been referenced lately when the issue comes up about the 2 options. The 2 options that the council narrowed down there were 2 options. One was just keep it open. Completely conservative, no development. That was option 1. Option 2 was to have the parcel up front, parcel 1, and then a parcel 2 in the back, where just the front portion would be considered for development. And that was the motion from March of 24 was for the village manager to explore both of those options. Both. There has not been official action from the council since that meeting in 24. However, last year, there was discussion when Jim was here about swapping properties with the Buster Dane site. And he brought it to the council. Jim brought it to council in May and said, I need more time to work on this. And it sort of slowed down and kind of died. I think we all kind of know how, we just talked about earlier with the township, and there were discussions, was worked on the swap, but then that never actually went anywhere. So where it stands in terms of official action from the council was direction to the manager to explore those 2 options. So in May, we met with John and Larry about both of these property, West Street property and the 7th Street parcel. And we wanted a concept plan to just look at the front portion, which was consistent with the direction from council back in March of 24. That's I just wanted to give a little background to what leads us here today.
thank you for that. That's good to know. And so John is here, and so I give him the opportunity to speak about the concept plan that he's provided us, and then we can have some back and forth if the council is okay with that.
Sure.
Sure. Well, thank you, John Stimson with Homestretch. I made some notes while you guys were discussing, so I thought maybe I'd just start with that. The idea of small multiple lots throughout the village, those are good candidates, Will, that you brought up. And no, it wouldn't be a onesie twosie situation for somebody to be, I'd like to build one here, Larry would do one there. Well, no, but if there were half a dozen of them.
Yeah.
Then we could say, okay, we're gonna do a scattered site application, we'll package them all together, build them all at once, a scattered site, developed in concert so that the crews that work on them go from house to house to house instead of back and forth remobilizing. So it could be a possibility if you wanted to tee that up for the future. Mixed use, about living above and commercial below. That's a great concept. That's how all these villages started, right? That was the original way that people lived and carried on and grew the village. Looking at that's a little bit more competitive on the local businesses right now. So if somebody said, hey, I've got space already available, why are you building more commercial? Or, you're gonna compete with another business that's already like-minded, that's in the village already. Unless you identified an actual vendor or business that said, yeah, I need the space, then we'd say, okay, well, let's tailor it to you. Because going in and building a white box ready retail space and then looking for a, you know, a retailer or a vendor, that's not what our business is. We want the housing above. So come at us with a commercial, you know, entity that says we need space, we can accommodate them up above. So don't rule that out, but with that caveat. Site rubrics, the best way to go. In some respects, you tell us which properties you want developed and how you want them developed, and then we'll take it from there. You bring us in on the rubric, that's a great idea too. Limited scope and time for myself, I know maybe not so much Larry, I know we're both busy, so having to take that into context.
Can I
Oh, yeah.
throw that in there, because I think that is really important, because some of these sites like West Street are gonna require a ton of soil removal, for example, to get a flat space. And so I think your input in ranking these should be definitely considered, and considered very high, because the planning commission doesn't have your expertise. They're not builders and they're not developers, and they don't know what things cost. And so yes, I think that should be included. Okay, that's my only comment.
Yeah, and to the extent that you realize that we're gonna be spending, you know, on any development, once we get the piece of dirt and we're ready to, we're gonna spend $50,000 just doing our due diligence and seeing if that's gonna work and putting out the applications. Maybe the village wants to participate in some of that pre-development expense, you know, and just donating the land is one aspect. That's just the beginning. I mean, you go into all the other tax incentives and other, you know, incentives that you have to bring to the table to make it affordable housing. I can tell you right now, I want to build apartments. Larry wants to build single family homes or condos to sell. You know, we can do both. I prefer the apartment approach because it's the lowest barrier to housing. You can get in without a huge down payment. You don't have to have scrutiny and a bank loan and all this other jazz. The flip side is it costs more in subsidy to build apartments. So where Larry could do a single family home for sale for $100,000, you know, grant to lower the price for an affordable rental, I would need 150,000 per unit. So it's almost double the entry fee and takes more time, but the money's available right now. So if you're gonna act, I would say act within this year, by the end of this year, get something in the pipeline to put to MISTA, because they've got capital right now. Whether that's gonna stay that way, who knows?
Who knows?
That's the big thing, because we could all just, you know, not have this conversation. I wouldn't be here if the money dried up, and it's going to at some point. So availability of water and sewer versus private services. You know, I know your hookup fees are 20 grand. If you could cut that in half or just donate it, that would go a long ways to demonstrating, you know, your desire to have affordable housing. Once the units are installed, you're gonna get the use fees, right? So it's the down the road, you're trying to get more connections to service that debt. That's a positive thing. We've done both private well and septic and through public use. I personally like the private idea because we can amortize a loan and a leach field over 40 years on a mortgage. That lowers the cost. We're not paying fees to the municipality for their sewer system. The flip side is you can't get as much density. I can only build up to 8 units on a private well. Right. Whereas if I had sewer hookups, I could do 16 or 20 units. Now, I don't want to do more than 16, to be honest with you. So private wells usually, like Vineyard View you mentioned, that was 8 units, 1 private well, plenty of land for a leach field and an alternate field for the future. That's the downside. You need more land for private facilities.
We can't have drain fields in the village. It's illegal.
Right.
We've got a municipal sewer system that is mandated, so.
Gotcha. So we would be hooking up regardless when we're
Yeah.
building in the village.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about building outside the village, so some of this comes into play in that, in my thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the site that has the driving range is in or out of the village.
Yeah.
In, okay. So everything. you
Yeah,
talked-
all the ones we're talking about are
Are
all
in
in
the
the village, but there are some that are not on water and some that are is there one that's not on sewer? Yeah, there's one, the one on, Metwood.
Millfield Road.
Yeah, Millfield. That one is not on sewer or water. And then there are, I think
That's a swamp.
there's like, yeah, there is something in there.
It's really.
And then there's, and then there's just one that isn't, two that aren't on water. But they have sewer, so, yeah, so I don't think we have any that are,
It's all there available,
yeah.
on Milk Hill, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It stops right now. The sewer stops.
The
at-
water runs right
Yeah.
past there, the sewer's coming in close, yeah.
We should update it. This is-
Oh, it says no.
I think,
You can't vote in there.
I think, John, you have more to say, right?
Oh,
Keep moving.
Just keep talking and then we'll come in with our question.
yeah, no, I mean, I'd rather have just a conversation,
Oh.
a presentation and a question and answer period. And so much to consider, your zoning ordinance for one, we have to conform to that, or are you amenable to changing it? Like, we need 2 parking spaces per dwelling. Can we get away with 1? That's something that the site's the constraints of the sites, if I want to build 4 units versus 6. And then do you want the parking to take up a huge amount of the site? Or can we say, will you allow some, on-street parking for that development? And if it's for elderly people, are they gonna need a car, or who are we catering to? So the zoning is gonna be a big thing to discuss, and it can change or it cannot. And if you say it can't, okay, then those are some constraints. How about fire services? You have a 100-foot hose or a 200-foot hose? What is the access?
We have plenty of those.
But you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting is that when you see a plan, it's got all these parameters taken into consideration, and we want to know, can we do a 3-story? Well, in the Village of Honor, we couldn't. We didn't have a ladder high enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's these things, but if you cooperate with us and we work with you, then that's a better relationship than our saying like, I'm sorry, I brought a plan that shows the whole site on 7th Street developed, but you're here today. We might develop the first portion in the front. In the future, the people sitting here might say, we want to take this development further. So at least you have a path for, if it did get developed later on and you were successful, let's see what it would look like. So you have a path to where you might be going, even though you're not right now. That's the idea of maximum density for the site. So on that site specifically, our intent, and if you see the plan, it might be a good idea to bring the plan up, to just look, because it's assumed that the green space between all the units is gonna be built around the existing trees. And you don't have a tree inventory, but we would do a tree inventory and say which trees are species that should be kept, which are on their way out. We would work it in with regard to that, site and the way that the growth is there right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Question, how far back does, like, to that phase 1 line, do you know how far that is? Like how many feet or not? Okay,
You're looking at the one, the most recent, the cottage.
yeah, the
Yeah.
one that's the phase 1, I just wondered if you knew how far back that extended.
I think it goes beyond, it does go beyond the open scrubbed area, because the parking is taking up that scrubbed area. And there's an example of where I'm coming from. If that open area has to accommodate all the parking on the site, well, that's where it's gonna be used, and we meet the ordinance by doing so. I think we have 2 spaces per lot, plus, some visitor space. And then handicap accessible spaces too. So you're gonna migrate in, if you look at this plan, it's gonna migrate into the forest with the understanding that the trees to be kept that are the healthy, mature, quality trees would remain. So this path would meander, but we can only go so far based on hose length or other constraints. I think this site could be tightened up even a little bit more, having closer proximity to each other. Distance between buildings, maybe we can get more of a cottage style.
What about putting some of the parking behind the eastern set and having that access from North Shore Drive?
It's a good possibility.
Minimizing buffer, but,
Right.
it's,
Does this site only make sense to you with 12 units? Does it only make economic sense with 12 units?
12 is the sweet spot that I'd like to see. I would do a minimum of 6. And I would like to do a maximum of 12. In phase. I could not come in here and build this whole thing out at once. I wouldn't, to begin with.
So you would build one building first and see how things go, but then plan the second?
Which side are you looking at?
The,
I think she's.
Are you looking at the cottage,
Is it-
cottage side?
no, this is what I'm looking.
Oh,
Is that wrong?
yeah, no, I was,
Oh, that's the original one.
no, this is the latest cottage style.
Okay,
There was the
I don't know.
the site that John's asking at right now. I was
Oh,
trying to clarify, the site that John's referring to right now, he just sent to me today,
oh,
and I put it in.
Is it the one at the bottom,
Dropbox.
full site?
Yes, I put it in the Dropbox just today.
okay, so where am I?
I only had
find that?
one for the packet. That was the 12 unit.
Oh, here we go.
no, full site, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah, all right.
Here, you display it.
I got it. I found
This
this.
is the one before.
I gotta get into the meeting to do it.
But that's totally different.
Yep, it's cottage style. It's more of a
Mm-hmm.
close, sort of zero lot line site condo kind of a concept. Albeit under one ownership.
I got it. Okay, so, but this takes up far more space.
Yeah, that's what we decided we are not gonna.
Don't
do.
wanna do.
Yeah, we can't go, we're not gonna take out those woods. I mean, just,
No, and that's not my intent.
okay,
Yeah, and.
well, this plan does. I mean, this is the one that had everybody freaking out, I think.
Well,
And-
that one, but there's another one that,
It's not in the packet.
yeah,
It
you're
was,
talking about this one.
I don't, yeah. Okay, yeah, that would have been it too. Yeah, I never actually saw it until
Yeah.
this now, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So let's,
And this has 15. This has 15 units.
Right.
But I thought she wanted to build apartments and not, these are rentals, but they're individual.
That's, yeah.
right. Efficiency, smaller units. I think this is more intense on the land, whereas the one that you were looking at, which is the first phase or cutoff version of the plan that got everybody upset. I'm sorry, but that wasn't the intent. It was to show what the land could handle.
Right.
If after 10 years, this board says, hey, we love what we've done, we're gonna continue plowing through. That was the only intent, so. Let's scrub the cottage style and say, go back to,
The townhome apartment style.
yeah, because this one, and I can tell you for sure, this I can build for about $250,000 per unit, which is crazy cheap. My
Oh,
build
Sounds
cost.
awful expensive to me.
Oh, I know, I agree, but it's, right, but, well, put it this way, the building cost, all of the site work, the actual hard cost construction is really about 185,000. There's another 65,000 on top of that for reserves, set asides, all of the design, architectural, everything else put into it, so that's the downside, but 250 is actually a good price per unit in this day and age. And we build them ourselves, we develop it ourselves, and we manage it ourselves.
But
So-
this is not what you're talking about. Right, what you're talking about just now is the other image.
Yeah, and so if there's consensus that this is too intense on the land,
Very much.
then go back to the other one where it has I think it's 2 6-unit buildings.
Yep.
And that's the one that is my go-to.
Yeah,
We can build them all day long. And we've done in Honor, Suttons Bay, Frankfurt. We're about to do another batch of them in Crystal Mountain. They're an efficient 960 square foot 2-story townhome, does not require fire suppression because they're townhouse style, so we don't have to have sprinklers. They're great. I mean, they're easy to build and we incorporate mass timber in them. So it's actually got a lot of wood components.
these are the ones that you showed examples of at the first housing meeting back in April or May, when you showed your construction pictures and stuff like that. Okay.
So that right,
And your research suggests that we could fill these, we could fill 12.
I think this village could, I think we did 8 in the Village of Honor. We filled 8 in the little town of Honor. Why couldn't we do 12 here? We wouldn't do all 12 unless our market study said you can absorb 12 within 3 months.
That's what I was talking about, your
Yeah.
market study.
Yeah, and if it came to the point where the market study says, you're really closer to 8, maybe we just say, well, let's do half the development right now and do 6. And then get those absorbed up and running, and then say, okay, let's try another 6 a year later or 2 years later. That's the smart way to do it.
I mean, I would be shocked if our market study didn't show we needed quite a few. We lost 5 families over the summer because of housing. Like,
Okay,
Right.
okay. I say, let's go ahead with this.
I agree.
I just say, why delay? What's the reason to delay?
I mean,
It's not a beautiful site right now. It's pretty
boat
crappy. looking.
trailer parking and wood chip storage.
Yeah,
it is, but that's because we haven't pursued doing anything else with it. You're right, that's what we had said.
well,
Let's at least see how. we
sell
pursue
it,
the
put that lot up for sale for somebody to build a.
It also could be, renaturalized and turned back into nature. I mean, there's lots you could do. Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's like over 100 comments that wanted us to do that.
Mhm.
And we've been talking about it last time, so I don't,
Well, this would be my obvious choice. So
I agree. I mean, to preserve, what does this take up? Maybe an acre and a half of land or so into,
Yeah,
to
this
pre-
is the
so
one
to
I was
preserve,
asking
to
how far
preserve
back
4
it goes.
acres of natural
like.
area. It uses the front lot that was option 2 back in March of 2024, so it does meet the criteria of, working towards, something on that site. And as he said, the lowest barrier to entry is rental, and, that's what this provides, and it's got water, it's got sewer.
It works for me. I'd like to see it intrude into the tree area as little as possible, and if that could be compacted a little, maybe, and I think that's
Cause I think right
an
now,
awful lot of parking. I think, I don't know if there's a zoning requirement, but I don't think there is there?
It's,
Parking there is-
yeah, it's 2, that's what John's referring to with the 2 units per acre, and I would definitely like to look at that. I would like to see it more at 1.5.
Yeah,
At the
There
I
was
was thinking one
so
five.
much
And I really think just from my
Golf cart parking.
observation of the site, without, it's hard to observe the site and then look at the plan and then, have the 2 things kind of hand in hand. The tree line is not terribly far back. It's, I would say, less than 100 feet back to where you really get into kind of the tree line. In the parcel 1 delineation line that is on the survey that John Core did that led to it was part of the plans that led to the motion in March of 24. If you can kind of picture it, I can share it as well. In fact, here, let me pull it up because I think I've got it sitting here. Yes, here it is.
I do think that this is gonna intrude into the tree line some, but
Yeah,
not.
and
a
so
ton.
the way, that's kind of, that's what I was getting at.
That's why I
is
was
that
asking what the distance was, cause
Yeah.
I think it overlaps.
Well, this-
Both
this-
on the
this
side, on
is-
the.
Yeah, there you go.
This is the survey that,
Mhm.
I believe it's, John Core,
Mhm.
back in 24. So this was the 2 parcel layout, and you can see here, if you can kind of see it's hard to see that pointer, but this line here, that's 177 feet to that parcel 1 delineation line.
Mhm.
But my observation on just the ground looking at it is it's probably more like 100 feet or possibly less. So I think what I would like to see is like Will was talking about, where you preserve as much of the existing tree cover as possible and work with the existing site and nestle development within that if you encroach on that area.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to do that. It's not, I don't think, represented well enough on the concept plan. There is a way to do that. I think John's looking to just say, hey, here's what 12 units looks like on the site. But when you get into more detail, you can finesse that a little bit. And I think once you do a tree survey as well, once you get into the finer points of designing it, there's a way to do that. But for now, I'd like to have some direction. do you even wanna go forward with the site? And if so, you know, then we can take the next step, but I really wanna have that consensus.
I got you right here.
John, if we were to start with this one building, I think we started with building one. That wouldn't really hurt the tree situation at all.
Correct.
Smaller trees, not full
Mhm.
grown.
Meets the 6 unit minimum that I would.
Laura,
I just have a question too, because your comment that like in 10 years, the council then might not feel the way that this council does. And while that may be a positive for you, that's a negative for me, because this land used to be protected and the protections were removed, and I don't think they should have been. And if that hadn't happened, none of this would be developed at all, because it wouldn't be developable. And so one of the things that those reports and all of that work is that, like, is there a way to get protections back, and could we approach that process? And one of the questions I have is, if we are looking at this, or the council consensus vote is that this one's happening, is there a process, or what is the process if we want to protect the other portion, which we have discussed, but nothing has happened on that? All that's been moved on and researched is to put housing on it. And I would feel a heck of a lot better if there was something in the works also that was protecting the rest, so that despite the appeal of putting more housing in there, the rest is actually protected again.
Well, I support that fully.
Because
But how do we do that?
that's what I'm asking.
Conservation easement would be the first idea that comes to mind. There might be brighter minds that can come up with something else, but a conservation easement to just create that, you know, perpetuity, so that it's.
Is that pretty easy to do?
Yeah, fairly.
Depends on who's gonna hold the easement.
Yeah, the Blue Line Conservancy has no interest in holding that easement, according to when I contacted.
They said
them
it
about
wasn't big enough, yeah.
It's not big enough for them that they're totally disinterested.
Yeah, historically, when I was on the board of the conservancy, anything that small, the costs of enforcing the easement and maintaining the monitoring that you have to do, it makes it like I do it. You could always make it a park dedicated as parkland, and once you
That's-
dedicate it as parkland,
That's
it takes
probably
the
the
vote of
best
the people.
protection.
Which is what I wanted.
Yeah,
That's what our recommendation is.
That-
In
that's
plan
actually, yeah.
one.
That's the other,
yeah, it would require a referendum to dispose of it.
oh, yeah.
So in the interim, my suggestion would be to survey off a section just for this development.
Mhm.
Keep the rest, do what you want later on, but do a delineation, as long as it meets the zoning ordinance for the minimum acreage required for this development. And then in doing that, then you have control over this piece of property before you commit it to, you know, a nonprofit like Homestretch, but commit it with a deed restriction that says it has to be developed for the purpose of affordable housing, not to exceed 120% AMI. And then that way, it ties our hands, it alleviates you of any worry down the road that it could be sold off.
Mhm.
A question for Jared. I mean, aren't we already gonna have to do like a PUD or something this is already non-conforming? I mean,
Right, with R2.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, in fact, you would need more than a PUD. There would be, you would need a rezoning to
Yeah.
increase the allowable density.
right.
Do
So
that
that's-
first, and then we may also wanna look at a PUD, in order to have some other, allowances, like for parking.
Right,
But
setbacks.
the PUD only allows the density from the underlying zoning district, so if you try to if you put a PUD on top of an R2, you're still limited by whatever R2 density.
yeah, so we'd have to rezone it. So we're gonna have to-
rezone.
We
Yeah.
can tailor the rezoning to what needs to be done, is what I'm saying. Because we're gonna have to rezone anyway. So. There you go.
Do we need to change the future land use map before we do a rezone?
That would be advisable. I forget what the future land use designation
Public
is.
quasi use.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, I would think so, yeah. I would advise.
Oh, we have a lot of work to
Into
do.
that.
It's just stuff.
Good thing it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I would rather build on Buster Lane.
I think everybody would, but I am
But
not
it's,
gonna wait.
it's just not gonna happen.
I'm not gonna wait for the township to act, and I think there's too much public resistance.
Very much so.
They won.
And
It's
this
a,
is,
it's a far better site.
Yeah.
And nobody's used it all summer, but it's, you're salmon swimming upstream on that one.
this is something we can control. This is something we can do. I think that,
It's also walkable.
yeah.
More
It's also what,
Walkable.
walkable and accessible to the
Secondary street.
businesses. You
No,
can
so it's
have-
Buster Dam.
you
So
know,
it's a ton of lots.
And
I mean, if that's the
The thing about
criteria, we
walkable-
just looked at
But
this
it's
stuff.
more walkable, put it that way. I mean, I know it's up the road a little bit further than where this is, but it's closer proximity to Main Street. That looks good on grant applications. I'm just being serious. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care. Give me a property to develop, I'll develop it. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But it does lend itself better, in my view, to when I write a grant application for this, to promote it being right within the central district.
right? And it's near the water. It's a nice place
It
to
really
live.
is, you know, there is.
It's a nice place to live.
So I think. So the next step would be to direct the village manager to continue working with Homestretch and John Stimson on this concept plan. I mean, what we'd be looking to, you would need to do further work yourself. Sounds like we need to do more work as a planning commission and as a council.
Yeah, I think I'd like to come back with. Kind of a plan. Or like a stepwise plan, something in writing, so we can all, we're all on the same page.
Mhm.
We're just kind of talking about it now. You see some plan, you see a map, you see plans. But to actually have an outline, a process for how this would proceed.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful, not to just take this discussion today and say, it's been decided, here's how we're moving forward, but if there's consensus and direction, that I can put together something in writing for you to review and see exactly what that's gonna look like. Not just now, next month, but like a year, 2 years down the line, and who would be involved.
And
Because
at that
remember,
point, we would vote on it, because we need a
You
vote.
certainly could.
We need a
That
vote.
that would probably be good. I recall the conversation that we had in July when Jim was here about the county's involvement. That's another piece to this that I think is important. There is soil contamination on the site, and there's brownfield funding that can be a piece of these redevelopment activities. So it's an eligible activity, just housing, not the cleanup.
Mhm.
The attainable housing is an eligible activity, so there's possibilities for that too, so I'd like to have that in a plan.
I like it.
And I would involve maybe the site engineer, Mansfield Land Use Consultants. Because they're gonna be surveying, putting a site together that you could use that to get your zoning and your land division created. Just a thought.
I would implore to the people that, the clock is now ticking on this, but to the people on North Shore Drive who are still against even this small development on the hardscrabble part of 7th Street, if you're still really opposed to it, don't complain to us, go to the township and ask them why they haven't done anything in terms of the land swap. When Barb Connolly was on this board, she was all about attainable housing. She's done nothing since she's been elected to move forward on attainable housing. So if you want to yell at a politician, yell at them, not us, because if they're not doing anything, we're gonna do this. And it's because of their inaction that I feel like we have no choice. They've tied our hands.
Anything else on discussion on the 7th Street property? Okay, so it sounds like, John, thank you for coming and talking with us today about what we can possibly do on that site. And I know you mentioned at the housing meeting last Tuesday that you've been to a lot of communities and gotten this done in the time that you've come to Northport to talk about it. And so,
And the sooner that you can do it, the better, because we've got a whole lot of work ahead of us if we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, once you turn it over to us, it's gonna be at least a year's worth of work. But
About the sooner we get going, better.
Yeah,
We can't dilly
and you're not dealing with just an outsider. My wife's from the area. She's a stowe. So
Oh,
I'm on your side.
Yeah. So the manager has some direction to bring us back a plan that would help us, propose development on this site and how we would go about that in accordance with our planning, zoning, the developer and the surveyor. So we'll have some information that we can discuss further and then
Exactly,
approve
yeah.
at some point, but it may take some time to put it all together. You're thinking,
I would like to have it back here at the October work session.
okay, that sounds great.
There's quite a few steps in
Mhm.
the process, and as we talk about it, multiple things come up. There's a lot of moving pieces that kind of all kind of happen together. And that's why I'd like to put it in writing so we can all talk and kind of visualize the process.
And for the public, they can see the process as
Yeah.
well. It's not just we just say, hey, John, go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody wants to see housing, but we gotta go about it the right way, and I think this is a great first step. Thank you for coming again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Will we be able
Appreciate
to
it.
vote in October on
Thanks.
some,
Not at the work
well,
session.
be at the work.
not at the
session.
work session, but
Yeah.
at the full meeting so that we convey our thinking?
Yes,
I think we'll know more after the work session.
exactly. So after we have that discussion, I think you guys can tell me exactly what you'd like to move forward with in terms of formal action, even if it's just a resolution
Mhm.
stating, we're gonna move forward according to this plan.
Right,
Mhm.
right, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the great discussion, everybody, on that. That brings us to 5C, which is a West Street property, future use, and today we've got Larry Mobby here to discuss that property. He's provided some information here with us, and this comes after the May 22nd meeting. Earlier in the year, I'd asked the council for consent to discuss the property with Larry, and that's what's gotten us here today.
Okay. Yeah, we were asked to consider the possibility of developing attainable housing on the 6 lots on West Street that the village owns. They are, as you may be aware, not the easiest to develop. They're basically hillside. And the cost of making those lots developable is, I think, probably gonna make it not work. But having, there is a plan that could potentially accommodate that. Much of the information that I sent to Jared and then gave you is still accurate. However, there's a really nice spreadsheet that I put together that I've modified substantially and reconfigured in a much better way that I just finished working on a few minutes before I left to come here. So I did not share that with anybody. Central to my analysis of that, the possibility of developing housing on West Street are several assumptions. One, that we would be we would have no cost. We would be given the property at no cost. Number two is that the village would be willing to approve a TIF plan to recover a substantial amount of the cost. That assumption also assumes that not only will the village agree to that, but the township and the county will also agree that this is a fully subscribed to TIF plan. And we got some very preliminary cost numbers from Cal, who's familiar with the site because they did the work 20 years ago on the 2 lots at the south end that have been developed. And I also got some information from them about how that compares to what the cost would be if we had clear flat site development, not woods and hills that needed to be removed. And the difference is, unfortunately, quite large. As it stands, it looks to me like if we were given the property and we had this TIF that was extended to the maximum, 25-year TIF, where we recovered all of the tax revenue from the next 25 years. You get none right now because you own it and it's not on the tax rules, but this a financial analysis I did assumes that we put some combination of single family homes. We could put 6 single family homes. We could probably put 3 duplex buildings, which results in 6 residences. If we had the construction that we're planning on in Suttons Bay based on modules built in a factory in Indiana and all the infrastructure that we need, paying the full cost of the $18,000 sewer tap fee and I put in $2,000 for the water because I didn't know what that was, but if we could recover, excuse me, if we maxed out the TIF, we could get a single family house, a single family 2-bedroom house down to where our real cost is $288,000, which is about $100,000 more than what's really affordable to what I believe would be your target workforce, where that's people making, a family making about $70,000 a year can afford about $180,000 for a house. And so we're, with you giving us the land and giving us all the tax revenue for 25 years, we're about $100,000 too expensive.
Okay.
So we would need to go see grant sources to
We
cover
would
that
need
gap.
to have you look at other properties that we've identified.
Well, I'd be happy to look at these other things. I never saw the rubric until today, but some of those infill possibilities that John mentioned where you could package them together, that might make sense, but I haven't looked at any of that stuff. But if there's anything that's easier to develop than those hillside properties, I think it's worth investigating. If we had the same situation of giving us the land in a 25-year TIF, if we were on a level site that didn't need all that site work, we're at about $245,000 for our costs. It's instead of $288. The difference is really the additional cost of
So
the site work.
even with, just for example, Buster Dane Park, which.
Oh,
is like-
it's still not gonna be affordable just flat out of the gate. No. There'd be some gap funding that we need to come up with.
From who?
Federal Home Loan Bank has some opportunities. Mishta has some opportunities. It's the same
Yeah,
the same sources that
okay.
that Homestretch looks at.
Yeah, we covet some of our donors, because they're foundations, we have relationships with them, but some of them cross over with Larry's group too.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 that I mentioned are the pretty much
Public.
publicly accessible ones.
Okay,
There are other there are other people, we would be looking at folks in the community to make contributions. We would look at the possibility, we are working with the possibility of lowering the funding cost of the development by getting program-related investments from private foundations or philanthropic investments from private individuals. We're looking at, we're gonna need to do that in Sutton's Bay. We're gonna need to do that wherever we do anything. So, those kind of tactics to get the housing affordable, it's the same all over the county. I just really, I don't want you to be discouraged. But the fact is, free land does not mean it's doable. Yeah. Things like, if the sewer authority was willing to, take less than the normal, tie-in fees, that could help. The assumption here in my analysis was that we would capture, over the course of 25 years, we would capture, for this single-family 2-bedroom house, we would capture about $142,000 worth of taxes over 25 years. That, the net present value of that means that you could, that would finance, that could be, that tax revenue could finance about $85,000 worth of costs that we could recover. Included in that would be the $20,000 to connect to the sewer. And then there'd be another $64,000 of costs associated with development. These are all, if recoverable costs. I think you're gonna need to look at something like that with the 7th Street thing as well, particularly if there's any cleanup, that's easy to get, a lot of money involved in site cleanups. If there's anything there, that's gonna be something that John doesn't want to have to pay for. And the only way to recover those costs is with a tip. So, the sobering fact for you guys is you're gonna be asked by whoever, anybody that does, you're gonna be asked to take very little, if any, tax revenue for a long period of time for the village to be able to accommodate the desire to put affordable housing in the village.
We have a lot of people paying taxes in the village, big money.
I know, I'm just saying that that's the reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think,
I was just gonna ask about the cost of earthwork and fill and the slope problems on that West Street site specifically. Any site is gonna have certain prep costs.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, I wanna hear if you kind of agree with my take that it's a little higher than if you're just going on a site without the slope. But it's really overall, when you talk about the deficit in terms of what would be needed, the gap to have units that you can sell at what you consider to be an affordable price, it's a relatively small portion of that overall, right? I mean, it's not as though.
It's about $45,000 a lot.
Oh, really? All right, okay. Well, that's why I wanted to ask.
That's where the figure that I had, I don't know if you looked at. I hope you didn't spend a lot of time looking in detail through all the spreadsheet stuff I sent you. But Cal gave me a budget number of $90,000 a lot to clear the trees, move the soil, put in the water connections, put in the sewer connections, do all the stuff. Patch the road after about $90,000. The same things to do on a level site where you don't have to clear the trees and move the things, but and move the dirt, but you are digging a basement, you are putting in a driveway, you are putting in the water connections and the sewer connections is about $45,000. So yeah, there's money, yeah, it's about
They
double.
were saying it was about double
Yeah.
because of the slope conditions on that site.
Yep, and that was the best case, because we didn't do any engineering to see whether we would have to put retaining walls in because of the slopes that would be left after you removed. That's like, I don't wanna spend the money to figure that out at this point. But that's the unknown additional cost. Yeah, so that was our best case to use those parcels. Yeah,
I have a question that might be for Jared, but so with 7th Street, we would have to change the zoning, the future land use map is off. This is R2 also, correct? Like,
I don't have it in front of me, I believe it is.
I think
It is,
so.
it is.
It lists, so that allows
We-
2-family dwellings. Does this fall under that, or we would have to split the parcels so that they're individual? So this one is
They're-
good to go.
that is 6 lots of the Hutchinson addition to the, and so my plan said those 6 lots, we would build a single family home on each lot. You really can't put a duplex on a single lot. And so it would take 2 lots to do the duplex.
Due to the size of it?
It's one parcel right now, so.
That's what I'm saying, like,
We could come in and divide it so that you could do duplexes.
I don't know whether it's one parcel.
Yeah, it is.
It's shown as
It's one parcel.
6 lots.
It's 6 platted lots
Okay.
that are part of one parcel.
so
So-
we would have to split it.
Yeah.
Because what's allowable by right is a single family home or a 2-family home. Multifamily home not allowed even by special use, which would
Correct.
mean we'd have to rezone it if we left it the way it was, but if we split it. Then that would be good, which is still a process, just not
Yeah,
as complicated. Maybe?
Yeah, no, I'm following.
Okay.
you. I think you're on the right track.
Okay.
You would need to split it in order to do duplexes on individual parcels, so instead of.
Or split it into 6 if they're each single family
Right,
homes.
exactly.
yeah.
But we wouldn't have to change zoning.
No.
Because it's
No.
already zoned.
No.
I mean, because we would still be able to keep that, we just gotta,
Yeah, the plan that I looked at was to conform to existing zoning.
yeah,
Well,
Can I just suggest if we're moving forward to 7th Street, maybe let's not put our eggs in too many baskets at once. And we also have the variable of the new community vision. We don't know what they're gonna do out there in terms of alleviating the market need.
mhm.
So I think we're moving forward in one direction and we should maybe stick to that. And maybe even consider eliminate or getting, privatizing some of these properties that are non-tax generating, non-income generating assets of the village. Sure, they're going up in value. But at some point, maybe we should sell the West Street lots to a private developer. Get the tax money, get the sewer hookups, and take the profit and invest it maybe in 7th Street or into the general fund, but whatever, but that's been sitting there for a long time and it's not environmentally sensitive in my opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing, I've always assumed that would get built on. It wouldn't break my heart. I don't know if there would be some public outcry, but I'm one of the most tree hugger people around and I'd be willing to let that go. To a private developer, because it does not look like it's gonna work for affordable housing, so let's Max, let's think about.
Yeah, I
We're
agree.
not gonna take any action today, but let's think about and put your feelers out there, see, maybe we should just be selling that off. And using it for, for something else that we're not involved.
Sure.
I think that that's part of why we were, when you asked, why did we put the market value of properties, that was part of what we were thinking, is like, are there some of these, I mean, we actually do own a lot throughout town. Maybe some of them we don't need to own anymore, as a factor that then can go towards something else. I think the other thing for me, I really think that if the scatter property development is an option, I feel like that's also something to look at, though, beyond selling. Like, I agree that we don't want to have too many things going all at the same time, but right now these two were selected because they were the ones that people had already talked about. I do think that we still should look and be sure that these are the right ones. I know that you were convinced, but to me, I still would like to look at what they come, if we're looking and prioritizing all the properties, is there something that still works, or does it make more sense and there's less upset if we take and do scatter development, and review that still. But I agree that if this one is too expensive to develop and there are others that make more sense.
It might, it might well be developable for somebody who wants to do market rate housing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not developable.
Oh,
I'm saying that it's.
Yeah, no, it's just not
It
cost
makes it
effective.
really a challenge to try to do affordable housing
Right.
on that kind of a site.
No, in the private market, it definitely has value.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of value, and,
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't even think twice about $45,000 soil removal. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
So something for the council to think about. But I think right now, let's not bite off more than we can chew. And let's see how this goes with Seth before we get involved in anything else, and see what happens out with NCB, and maybe the township might get their head out of the sand someday.
When you do your ranking on your rubric, if you do have some, what I would call infield parcels, scattered sites, I'd be happy to look at the potential for doing something there.
He just a phone-
He just
took a
left.
phone call.
Oh, he took a call.
Okay,
Invisible.
and I think that John might as well. I'll speak for him while he's out of the room. Yeah, I mean, I think that we would like. My goal is to develop affordable housing and that stays affordable for the community forever. So we want to work with you. I just question whether we can make it work on those 7th Street lots, just because the
West Street.
sorry, the West Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was something when we first talked about it, that was.
Oh, that was
something-
my
we knew that
fault-
was
my
gonna be a
fault.
big hindrance to the project. I mean, that was something that, until we got the numbers,
That's fine.
that we can compare and look at, it doesn't, but like to say, like, if we were to split the lot next to the children's center, for like an infill lot or something like that. maybe
That's on top of the hill there, and that's just, it got
Yeah.
woods to clear, but it's,
Mhm.
that might be very, very doable.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's got
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
so,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the roadblocks that you see and that gets you to the 100K over is that the property will be given to you at no cost to the organization, and the village is willing to approve a TIF plan. Does anybody on council have a problem with either of those things, or are those not roadblocks to us?
Oh, no, I.
Because to me, they're not. I just wanted to be sure nobody else is like, oh, no, we can't give it to the organization.
Everything we can.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to see that that's the consensus. Because to me, those aren't the roadblocks. The roadblocks are that construction's too expensive.
Yeah,
So.
on that side.
Yeah,
I just think that, when you really look at the 7th Street site, that that's probably gonna need to be no cost land to Homestretch. And they're probably gonna need some tax abatement of
Oh, yeah.
some sort to make it all work, and if those are okay, then it's worth.
Well, that's what I just wanted to check,
Going
because to
forward,
me,
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, you can assume that those are things we are gonna
Mhm.
be willing to support,
And the.
from my perspective.
Yeah, I think the argument for, and most of me is with Will, that let's not just get into too much too fast. But then when you think about some of this federal money possibly being,
There is no federal money.
oh, there's no federal money.
So it's state money
So the state money, but is the state money at risk?
every year.
Always.
Every budget cycle.
Always there.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't think we should be basing decisions on that.
No, and the thing is, you can't act fast enough.
Right.
To get into, the fastest you could possibly do for John's thing is in the spring round
okay,
of Mishta money, and possibly the July round of Home Loan Bank money. That's the first opportunities that I'm aware of
okay.
that you could go for. And we're gonna be looking at those things for Sutton's Bay too, so there's gonna be competition for, not just,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah,
everybody's
trying to pull out of the
everybody is
same
trying
pool.
to,
It's-
it's going after the same pots of money, so.
Well, I thank you for
Okay.
the work you did on the site. I'm, you know,
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So
we're learning.
it was worthwhile,
But I do think, the point Will brought up about,
Yeah.
unloading some village property to fund other projects is worth looking at. And, exploring,
Somebody walking in the door.
but better than selling the
I think-
street parcel.
I think one thing,
Okay.
when you're thinking about what John is doing is rental opportunities, what we're trying to do is home ownership opportunities. I really think the community needs both, but
Mhm.
what the mix is and how many you need. You need a good market study, and that can only happen once you get within a few months of actually doing a particular project.
So that
So.
it's current?
It's
Is that the
gotta be
reason?
current.
So that it's current enough, is what you're saying?
If it's more than 18 months old, it needs to be redone.
I mean, that makes sense.
That's what I've been told by the market study people we hired to do work in Sutton's Bay. Said, don't have us do this too soon.
Yeah,
But John's done a market study for us, right?
No,
He hasn't,
Oh,
he's gonna have to.
But you're.
It will
okay, I got
determine
it.
whether he will do 6 or 12.
Well, we propose what we're gonna,
Yeah.
we propose a number of units and the event matrix that we'd like to see for the development.
Mhm.
And then they come back and they validate it and make suggestions,
Yeah.
and it's $4,500.
Mhm. So you're not gonna do that unless you're sure that we're gonna do something with you.
Not only that, I'm not gonna do anything until I get possession of the land. Because otherwise, my board won't let me do any
Mhm.
expenditures, so we have control. And it would be for a minimum of 1 year.
Mhm. Okay.
all right, well, appreciate the time. Thanks a lot, Larry.
Okay.
And, I think at this point, we'll move on to our next agenda item unless anyone has anything else. I think we've covered that West Street property pretty well. That brings us to 5D, which is sign regulations. Pretty lengthy.
Wow.
ChatGPT wrote all that? You didn't write all that?
No,
out,
I
right?
did not write all that, but
Holy
one
moly.
thing, I'm reluctant to include that with the packet. Because I'm still getting comfortable with the idea of using AI, but ChatGPT, from what I've found in my experience, when you use the deep research function, can do a very good job of citing its sources
Mhm.
and showing exactly, when I say, I want you to review case law, I want you to look at Michigan statutes. When I prompt it that way, I've found that it's really doing a good job of doing legal research that otherwise you're gonna get billed from legal counsel for. And so I like to just have it as a reference, not necessarily as something that you can count on as legal advice, but it gives you a guide.
So what is the issue right now with our sign ordinance?
Well, there are some regulations in the zoning ordinance that I don't think would hold up to a challenge.
Okay.
Related to First Amendment protections especially.
Yeah. Well, there's been some changes in Michigan law too, that in the last 5 years, but I'm just wondering if we have any, is anybody actively taking issue with us?
Not actively, no. I had an issue come up where someone contacted me and said, there are too many of these signs in somebody's yard.
Yeah,
And that was one of my responses was, I don't think that I can enforce what's actually in the zoning ordinance, the way it's written. So when I brought this to the planning commission said, we think that the village council should first consider whether or not you'd like to have some standalone ordinance potentially to regulate signage, or if not, then this is one of the several things that we can look at in terms of the zoning ordinance and what we can do to amend the zoning ordinance to make sure that we don't have something that might not be upheld if it was challenged. There is no currently any challenge where someone said, I applied for the sign and wasn't allowed to do the sign, but there are multiple regulations in the zoning ordinance that are problematic.
Can I just say
Go
something?
ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify that the zoning ordinance, when we were doing all of that, there was a lot of legal things changing at the state level and different things. And so the thought was the zoning ordinance doesn't have very much teeth at all for enforcement. And that the village should look to a village ordinance, which came to council, but nothing happened. And the thought was that it was probably going to be removed from zoning so that we could do a village ordinance. But then that hasn't happened. And so now the sign stuff is still there, but Wade Trim, which that was their recommendation, didn't really mess with it a whole lot because they were saying you should take this out entirely. And now it's still there. We don't have and so that's kind of from planning's perspective. And there have been some issues with signs, with a business in town and things like that is of recent. It just got itself resolved, fingers crossed.
Oh.
So, but that was before you were here, but, I think that there isn't anybody challenging right now, and that did get itself resolved. But I think that from the planning commission's perspective, leaving it only in zoning is difficult to, it's a lot harder to enforce than if it's a village ordinance.
well, so is the recommendation we take it out of the zoning ordinance altogether and have a standalone
Yes.
signage ordinance? And I agree with that. We
Yes.
can just copy somebody's.
Susan?
I would like to do, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would like to do some customization, because I think that
Okay.
this community particularly is sensitive to certain types of signage that may generally be allowable in some other communities. Certain types of LED signage,
Mhm.
things that go along with formula-based businesses, for example,
Mhm.
things like that. I think you'd want to take a really close look at those and make those very specific.
Well,
Non-content.
why don't we direct
It
you
would
to go
not be
ahead and do that?
content-based. We can do
Yeah.
that.
Let's do
All
that.
I wanted to say was I just don't get why we're doing anything since there doesn't seem to
I'm
be.
a little bit with you, but at the same time, let's just
But if
throw this
they
out there.
could, do it without
I think there are some low hanging fruit that we
that,
can
that,
get.
I think that would
Okay,
be
For
fine.
sure. There are some very obvious regulations in the zoning ordinance that are content based. And they're a problem, and I just don't wanna have, I really wouldn't be able to enforce them. So that is one approach, leave it as it is. And understand that they're not really something that I can enforce. Or any other person or zoning administrator.
No, I think if you want to take a crack at drafting something as a standalone signage ordinance, I think that's a great idea. And then we'll pass it, and then we
Well, I
can take it
mean-
out of the zoning ordinance.
We're doing it in zoning, it has to go to planning first and have a public hearing there, right?
It would have,
And then it's-
zoning ordinance would be amended first.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's a whole thing. If it's a village ordinance, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying like, it's a process and the village ordinance is its own process and if we're doing both, I mean, I don't know. You have a different opinion than Jim did and then Wade Trim. So I mean, like, if
How so?
Wade Trim, my recollection is they were saying that we should remove it and have it be a separate ordinance entirely.
No.
Um,
I can go either way, really.
But I mean, we didn't do that, right? Like, we were like, well, we could, but like that hasn't moved forward. And so now it's kind of like, we're looking at it again. This is a different makeup. I mean, and you're sitting here now. So if you have different opinions, I'm not like dead set on that. It's just, we definitely intended for something else to happen. Not to just sit the way it was.
So Jerry could bring us back a draft ordinance for signage and we could take a look at it, and if we want to approve that, we could remove the sign signage from the zoning board.
I'm
That
okay with
portion,
that.
I mean,
Yeah, and understand that it is a lengthy process, because it would take me some time to draft the ordinance, the standalone
Mhm.
ordinance. And then, once we reviewed that with the council, you signed off on it, we would then go to planning commission to do the zoning ordinance amendment. So you start stacking up the months.
Sure.
Which is because you have to, like, that's
Yeah.
the law, it's
Yeah.
not because we
Exactly.
want it to take a long time,
Yeah.
but like the
There's
state
a
wants you to take
period.
a long time so that the public has time to hear about it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's something that would extend, in the
That's
next
fine.
year,
That's,
but
I would say no
we
hurry.
could start the process at least, and that's why I want to bring it up.
Part of why it's good that there isn't a problem right now,
Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
we start now without having a problem, then
Yeah.
hopefully it's done before there is one.
Exactly, we're forward thinking, this is where we need to start.
Mhm,
well put, you.
mhm.
All right, so
Okay,
got direction?
Add to the list. Let's get so.
Okay, item 5F, South Shore Drive property swap.
Pilot policy?
Pilot policy, E.
this looked good to me. This is just the final.
It's the policy.
Yes, I can bring the policy back if you are okay with it. We can bring it back in the September meeting. I've tried to simplify some of the policies from other communities like Traverse City, Ann Arbor, and just make it easier to manage.
Mhm.
I intentionally did not include a scoring system for doing the pilot percentage, which, remember, could be anything between 0 and 10% of the annual shelter rent. And some communities have a very detailed system for scoring each project. And then, based on the scoring, you get a certain amount of annual shelter rent. But I think that's just overly complicated for Northport's purposes. I don't think you're gonna get that many potential pilot projects, and as long as you have a rational basis
Mhm.
for deciding what the pilot percentage is, I think you'll be fine. But that's one thing that I would like to point out, that's the difference
Mhm.
between what some communities are doing. Not all of them. And I also wanted to make sure that there were criteria included within the policy for reviewing pilot projects when they come in, and an application process.
So if everybody's in agreement, it's something that can go on the agenda at the next meeting and be voted.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay, yeah. If there's no other, yeah, no, it looked good. Well done on putting that together for us, and if, sounds like council wants to have it on the agenda for our meeting on 3rd week of September for action,
Mhm.
okay? All right. Now that brings us to 5F, South Shore Drive property swap. I'll check them out, please.
My other question is, why is this taking so long? It's obvious that, the road is in the wrong place, and it seems, I've known about this for 2.5 years now, it just seems like, let's just get it over with and do it, because it's totally fair to, it's 100% fair to everybody, and it doesn't affect anyone's lives other than theirs,
And there's no.
and it makes things correct. Yeah, it just makes the plat map accurate, so like,
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer, let's just do it.
I agree. I would say the fact that the property owners are
In
in
support.
support of it
Yeah.
makes it much,
Well, they came to us,
yeah,
so, yeah.
so let's, yeah, I mean, let's make it happen.
Let's do it. You can see from that, I wanted to outline the process. It's a long process too.
Mhm.
So, no,
That's
it's just.
I suspect that's why it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Because there are quite a few steps in the process. You have to follow
Replat,
yeah, that.
Don't say that word.
This is not quite the same though. This is,
Yeah.
it's a slightly different process. It's called what's the term that's. There's like a term of art used for it. It's like a replat, but it's not done through litigation process.
Mhm.
It's a consent, I believe is what it's called, like a
Consent decree.
Consent replat,
Okay. So we'll,
all consent replat, that's what it is.
all right, so it sounds like we're gonna, in favor of the project moving forward, so add that to the list.
And
And
so, are you okay with the village spending money on the documentation that lead? That'll include a survey and other legal documents. So I don't have, I mean, it's hard for me to have it, yeah, thousands. 3,000 to 5,000 would be a minimum, I'd say. And I feel like it's fair that the property owner should share in some of that. But I haven't had those discussions with them yet.
and we don't have an amount to vote on or anything like that, so,
Right.
so you would need to,
Yeah,
You'll need a roll call vote at the next meeting to approve this expenditure, but I think in general, this is something that it's the responsibility of the village to get that right. I mean, our road is going through their property. It's just not, it was a mistake and we need to fix it. It's just one of the things you do as government, so let's fix it. It costs a couple $1,000, so what? That's what happened.
Well, and I think the longer we wait, the more expensive it
Yeah.
gets. If they would have
Fix
fixed
it
it in
later.
the first place, it would have been cheaper then, you know, like to do it in 2001 or whatever it was, so.
I think we're in favor of it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's most of these things will fall under the village manager's spending limit. But they'll add up.
yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you asking, but I think that yes, in this case, we are definitely, at least I am,
Yeah,
in favor.
and if the property owners don't wanna share in the cost, it shouldn't be any reason to not move forward with it. That's what I'm hearing, right?
But if they will, I think that that's good too, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not even sure whose fault this is and maybe, and if they will contribute, that's great, but if they don't, we have to do it anyway.
That's what I was.
So you just said-
That's what I just,
Yeah.
no, you're good, that's, I was just trying to reiterate the point you were making, that I think if they say we're not gonna spend a penny on it, it doesn't mean we say we're not doing this, it just means that we're paying all of it, which I think the village should be okay with.
This goes back a long
I
way.
mean, no,
Yeah.
In the mid-90s, the village was working on this issue and how to create a culvert across South Shore and so it goes back at least 30 years.
okay. Alright. So.
Yeah.
Add it to your list, punch list,
Yeah.
add up. Okay, right, so that brings us to. Item 6, which is our second public comment. Again, members of the public will have 5 minutes to address the council. And if you'd like to either unmute or raise your hand if you're on screen or in person, you name and residence for the record. Public comments now open.
Yeah, Mary's phone is unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can.
I'm in the car. I did pull over. can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I've been in the car for 2 hours listening. My name is Mary Cermak Betzel. I have a home on North Shore Drive. And thank you, Will, and all for clarifying what was going to happen on 7th Street. Again, I want to say I'm firmly opposed to any housing going in on 7th Street, especially when I heard how many the man was talking about, the first man that was talking about 7th Street. I was absolutely blown out of my seat here in the car. And I want Bob Newell to plant trees and take it back to its natural state. I think you have other possible properties. And as many of you have thought, I think you should start small with 3 or 2 or 3. And at this point, I wish you luck and I will be following you all along. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Jane.
Jane Dale, West Third Street. Thank you for giving good direction to the planning commission. We will carry things forward from here.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sue, looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi, Chris and everybody. I just want to reiterate exactly what Mary had to say. I know all of you know that, for the however long we spent working on this 7th Street issue before, um, it just is hard for me to believe that we're right back in it again. I will say that I do know that if there are housing units built there, this will increase the problem that we already have here on the 7th Street road end, with our peace on our own property disturbed so many hours a day for the entire summer. It's going to be a real big issue, and also the traffic and the parking that will increase. This is already a very busy corner. So I hope you all take that into consideration. I know it seems like a quote easy property to develop, but there are other things to consider. And it seems like the neighbors should have something to say about this. So anyway, I'm in Mary's court. I wish we would just plant the trees and clean up the property and let it stay like it is. I shudder to think, and I know some of you do too, that then down the line, they could look at developing the rest of that we've already been through. So anyway, that's my little spiel. Thanks for listening to me.
Thanks, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Jane is unmuted. Jane, on Zoom? Not muted. Anyone else? Public comment?
Yes, this is Devin Moore. I am a village resident on Fleece Road, 12,000 East Fleece. I just want to second Mary and Susan. I would also love to see 7th Street repopulated with plants and trees and native things to just continue to encourage more of our environmental cause and to just protect our wetlands, our lakeshore, the houses and the neighbors that already are living here. I just feel like there could be other properties that would be less controversial. And I know that there are some properties that are very controversial that were discussed today, but maybe there could be other ones that are used versus ones that have already been through this process, have already voiced their concerns, and then we're back here again. I appreciate you guys listening and just taking into consideration all of our thoughts, our concerns, and our wants. Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. Anyone else? Anyone else for public comments?
I hear somebody trying to talk.
Could just be Jane's.
Outside.
Yeah, is it?
Was it?
No, can you hear me? It's Jane Boyd.
Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay.
Sorry, I had my audio off and I didn't quite figure it out. But anyways, yes, I agree with everyone that's speaking. I live on 7th Street. I mean, I live on North Shore Drive at the intersection, almost at 7th Street. And I mean, when you were talking about 1 or 2 houses, I thought that's fine. When I hear 6, I was like, what? I think that would be a big mistake. I think you need to think of all the consequences involved with 6 houses versus how many people that might be in each house and how many cars and how many everything, And so thank you for all you're doing and all the work. I know it's not an easy situation or whatever. And thank you for all your work.
Thanks, Jane.
Jane, just to clarify, the
Yeah.
final plan that,
Public comment.
oh, sorry,
You can do it in council comment.
okay.
Okay.
All good. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, if no one else is unmuting for public comment, then we'll move, oh, shoot, there is no council comment, but we're gonna add it real quick. For next,
That happened last time. It's something with the template for work sessions. It was missing last time too, yeah.
okay,
Once-
6A.
Yeah,
All right, so we'll council comment, Will, got your hand up, go ahead.
Yeah, to all the people who just had public comment from that live on North Shore Drive. Like I said during the meeting, if you're unhappy with the situation, go talk to your township supervisor, and ask them why they've done nothing and why they actually completely let the ball drop on Buster Dam. Because if we were building up there, we would probably be planting trees on 7th Street. This is in response to their inaction. And frankly, they blew it. All the work was done by the former supervisor, Mike McMillan, and Jim Dyer had this thing ready to go with the DNR to do the swap, to make this happen at Buster Dam. And the township didn't have the political gravitas because they saw the black and white signs and they got scared and they let the whole thing expire. And now it's too late. They blew it. Don't blame us. Go blame them. Thank you.
Anyone else? Susan?
Jane, I just wanted to tell you that the last plan that we were looking at, that we sort of gave the go ahead to, was about apartments on that property on 7th Street, not cottage homes, as had been drawn in, but that's not what we're talking about at this point. We're talking about apartments. It would still be 6 or possibly 12 residences, but 2 apartment buildings.
Only on the already cleared land.
Right, on the front,
Minimal cutting of trees, almost no.
right. So I just wanted to clarify that for Jane.
Any other council comment?
Well, just one other thing to say is that anytime change is proposed in anybody's neighborhood, the neighbors often are upset. And I don't know whether there are properties in the rubric that are so remote that nobody would care. I don't know.
I think that there are some properties, sorry.
That I'm done.
There are properties in the rubric that weren't previously protected and people bought land thinking it would be protected. And that it wouldn't be developed because it couldn't be developed, and now it is able to be developed. I think that's a distinction that that property has that others don't potentially have.
Well, you gotta look for the greater good. Everybody's gonna have a problem. I mean, somebody's gonna have a problem with anything you do. And like to quote Jim Dyer, I am so tired of people saying, I'm in favor of affordable housing, but just not here where I live or near where I live. It's gotta go somewhere and it's gonna be near where somebody lives. So the only place that really worked was Buster Dam, but that's off the table. That's not our fault.
If there's no other council comments, I have none, so make a motion to adjourn at 4:07 PM.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Are we off?
We're up, but you shouldn't discuss anything. We're out of session. Good. Open meetings act. So.
Is it stop recording?
Oh, here we go.